Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. He's got some topics we're going to dive into today. Apparently, there's a laundry list of things, and I am unaware of them all, so we'll see how this goes. How's it going, buddy?
Hey man, everything is good. Great to be back again. Always looking forward to have a little conversation on Mondays. It's like my little therapy session here. Obviously, when you're in crypto, you need therapy. So yeah, it's funny if you look at the markets right now, it's kind of contrary to what you read on X, because everyone is like expecting a big dump in September, and you read about Bitcoin whales unloading heavy loads of Bitcoin, and if I check the charts, it's actually pretty green. So yeah, not sure what to think of it. If it's like the magic market makers doing their work, and they do whatever they want, or if Bitcoin whales are actually selling. I mean, you can obviously track that on the blockchain if they sell or not. But if they sell and the price keeps up and does not dump too much, that's actually a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we're going into that time of the year where we are expecting to have the big, massive dump, and it hasn't happened yet. That could be because of, Bitcoin buying in the background, and that sort of, I guess you would say, it quells some of the fear, knowing that there's at least one chain that people are continuing to buy. I know Sailor bought more again. Institutional buyers are continuing to acquire at these levels. So, I mean, I think we've got sort of a new baseline for at least Bitcoin. We'll see what happens with the rest of it. The altcoins, obviously, nobody knows what's going to happen because we really haven't had that many altcoin cycles. So, at the end of the day, I'm as curious as everyone to see how this plays out. But, we're a week or more into September and we haven't had the big dump yet. That's not to say it won't come because, again, these things tend to be self-fulfilling prophecies, but we shall see, my friend. How about you? What do you think?
I feel like, on the other hand, it sometimes looks like, the market tries to do what people do not expect. And, for some reason right now, obviously, we will have Jerome Powell take the spotlight in a couple of days. I think, when is the meeting? September 17, I'm not sure. But everyone is expecting rate cuts right now. And, many people expect to sell the news event. And I feel like, so many people expect that event now that it gets more unlikely to happen. So yeah, we'll see. I think Polymarket says 95% chance of rate cuts. We've been waiting for that. Obviously, we'll see how the market reacts. Do you expect sell the news event?
I think everything's priced in, to be honest with you, because I do feel like the Fed's going to cut at least a quarter point. I don't think that they can survive the political and social pressure not to. So at this point, I think the meeting is a foregone conclusion. It's sort of a moot point. I would be surprised if they didn't drop the rates at least a quarter point, to be honest with you. And I think that would send markets into a tizzy, everyone not knowing what was going on. So with, the way things are, I mean, Polymarket's right a lot of the time, if we're being honest, So I think the social pressure in and of itself is going to, sort of dictate the quarter point. And that's not really enough to, I would say, cause, massive disruptions in the market one way or the other. So I think it's one of those things that they pretty much have to do at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not even sure, like, is that the last meeting this year, or will they have one in November as well?
I believe they have one every 6 weeks.
6 weeks. So there should be one towards like the beginning of November. And yeah, interesting. I mean, as you said, usually stuff is priced in already because to some degree it gets predictable, especially if you follow what Jerome Powell says, all the news around that. And it's funny because, throughout the year, we've all waited for this. Everyone was like, rates need to be cut and it needs to go down before, we see a big, heavy pump in the markets. And it feels like, especially this year, whenever we had these big things happen, like it always feels like people expect that huge pump. Every crypto up only season. Obviously, we've seen a big run with Bitcoin. ETH has been doing pretty decent recently. Obviously, just wasn't able to sustainably surpass its old all-time high. But yeah, I'm not sure. Like everyone is also expecting another run towards the end of the year, because historically this is what happened. But as you said, I mean, we've seen September's majorly being red. I think 9 out of the last 12 Septembers were red in crypto. Right now, we haven't seen a dump yet. So yeah, we'll see where this goes. But talking of crypto, we've also spoken about a little, it's actually a large scale supply chain attack right now. And the CTO of Ledger actually just made a post like 1 hour ago, saying that there is an NPM account of a reputable developer has been compromised, and the affected packages have already been downloaded over 1 billion times. Blah blah blah. He advises people to not make any transaction, especially if you do not use a hardware wallet. If you do, you should make sure to check every little character in the recipient's address. And yeah, man, it's crazy that it almost feels like there are some people out there spending 24/7 trying to somehow do these kind of malicious things and drain people's money. It's like that's like the bad side of crypto, obviously, because to some degree people can be cautious. But if someone has no idea about that right now and he feels like, okay, I always look what I do, I always double check, and then there is such a hack or whatever you can call it happening in the background, and it just changes the address, there's not much you can do about it. And that's something that definitely needs to get solved, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can do something about it. You need to verify the address before you hit the confirm button for sure. And, the warning that the Ledger guy put out, I can't pronounce his last name, Charles something, I think. The warning that he put out was specifically targeting people not using hardware wallets. So if you're using a hardware wallet, just verify, like it's going to show you on the screen, that this is the transaction that you're about to confirm. Just make sure that you double check all of that, of course. And I'm sure this account will be pretty much either shut down or corrected in short order. But at least in the meantime, make sure that you're double checking, verifying the addresses, and before you hit anything related to the confirm button on your wallet. So this is one of those things we have to deal with, and until we can get to this place where UI is so smooth and the connections between the chain and off-chain interactions are so secure, this is one of those things we're going to have to continue to struggle with. But it's just a reminder to be careful. If you're doing things the right way and you're verifying the transactions before you send them, at least visually, making sure that they're correct, you should be fine.
But do you actually look at every single like character when you sign a transaction? I feel like when people do that over and over and over again and everything is fine, they probably stop doing that or like feel safe. And once you have that kind of hack or whatever happened with the exploit here, I feel like it's not their fault, right? Like how can someone be responsible for that kind of thing? It's like as if you do like a bank transaction, and suddenly someone changes the account number or whatever before you send it out, and it always worked without problems. Sure. I don't know, man. I hate to see that kind of stuff.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the truth is we are easily lulled to sleep. It happens to the best of us. It's happened to me. It's happened to so many people in the space. We get lulled to sleep with never having been taken advantage of. But it only takes that one time for you to sort of wake up. And when you wake up and you realize, okay, well, here's the reality. I could potentially lose everything here, or potentially send this to the wrong person. Now all of a sudden, the spidey sense goes off, and it's time to start paying more attention. So, I mean, really, at the very least, verify the first 4 or 5 characters, verify the last 4 or 5 characters. It's very unlikely that 2 wallets would have the same. So, at the end of the day, if you're at least doing that, you're going to have some level of protection. And of course, if it's a a large transaction, it's always a good idea to send a test transaction first and then follow it up with the real deal. So that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, that's probably the safest way. What I usually try to do is, especially when I transact bigger amounts, like do a little test transaction before, and see see if everything goes well. And yeah, caution is definitely important in this space. I
Absolutely.
read that Do Kwon, who is the co-founder of the Terraform Labs of Luna, is pleaded guilty to fraud. He's actually the reason why we were able to accumulate Solana at like $8 or $9 back then. So we should be thankful. But he is about to face up to 12 years in prison, I think. And yeah, crazy, man, right? Like if you look at these guys, what's up with Sam Bankman-Fried? Is he still in prison right now? Yeah, he is, right? Or did he get out?
I think he's just about to get out, isn't he? Let me look this up. I know it's. I saw the mainstream media were yammering on about him getting out, but yeah, he was incarcerated, and I think he is getting out soon. Let me just double check here.
Yeah, because he was like a special case as well. I mean, I remember back then when, he was basically, I think he made a lot of donations back then with his FTX funds, and he was like with many big players out there, friends, and suddenly he got caught and got in jail and all that stuff, and suddenly everyone hated him.
Yeah, he's still in prison. He's supposed to be in prison for 25 years, but I'm pretty sure they've already started negotiating to get him out, which is interesting because he hasn't been in for what, 2 or 3 years, whatever it's been. It hasn't been that long.
Yeah, crazy, man. Crazy. Like such a young dude, who looks like a nerd, who plays video games and all that stuff. He probably didn't even think about the consequences, and suddenly like ruins his life, and yeah, has to stay in prison. But obviously, you usually have a pretty good chance to get out earlier. But yeah, Do Kwon, I wasn't even aware that he is in the United States.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that either. I thought he had sort of fled justice and moved overseas. Must have had the wrong information here.
Yeah. I think the crash back then wiped out like, I don't know, 40 billion or something. And yeah, I remember it. I remember being kind of worried in the very beginning, and then when everything went down, I felt like this might be a good opportunity, because like I think that was like the biggest fear ever I saw in the space. Like how did you witness all that?
Yeah, same. I mean, when all of this was happening, the Terra Luna thing and then the FTX thing, I mean, it's obvious even back then that crypto was basically inevitable. So at that point, I saw so many deals, and I just started snapping up everything I could afford to buy. So yeah, I mean, I was buying Sol at 8, ETH at 800. Of course, Bitcoin at wherever it was, I don't even remember. But I mean, anytime something like that happens and you can pick up the majors, for discounts, I'm all about it. I think Sol was at like $8 for, I don't know, maybe even not even half a day. It was a really, really short period of time, and it bounced back up to 10 and then 12 and then 14 and then 20. Like within the span of a week, you had already doubled or even tripled your money depending on when you had bought. So yeah, it was a great time. And then I just watched it ride all the way back up to the 80s, 90s, 100s, and now we're up over 200. So yeah, it was fantastic. And then of course, when you add in the rewards for the staking rewards for Sol, I mean, it's crazy. And I mean, I bought the Solana phone, the Solana Seeker, with funds that I paid $8 for. So that phone cost me $25. So I mean, at the end of the day, it was it was a great time, man. Great time for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it was actually the FTX crash that caused the Solana dump, or the whole crypto dump, where you could buy Solana for $8. But it's crazy. Like I remember back then when Solana went down all the way, that there were so many people out there expecting Solana to go like way lower. They were like, I'll buy it $4 or $5, or Solana is dead. They called it dead, and all that stuff. And it's funny because it's like the same people who, when we have a pretty good run, like a bull run or whatever, like up only season, and whatever coin does a 5 or 6 or 7x, and these guys show up and they're like, this is going to go to, I don't know, this is going to pull a 15x or a 17x or whatever, and that's why what people are waiting for, and that's why they miss the top or they miss to take profits, because there's so many people like creating these false expectations. And this is why DCA is always a good option, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like if you see a token that was, I think Solana had peaked up around 160-ish before that date. And when you see something that has viability go from 160 to 100 to 50 all the way down to 10 and then 8. I mean, are you kidding me? Like you're waiting for it to go to 5? That's just stupid. Like, oh, I'm not going to buy until it goes to 5. It's already 98% off. Just go ahead and start buying some. If it goes to 5, it's going to stay there for 3.5 seconds and it's going to bounce up to 9. So, I mean, what are you doing? Like, and this whole thing started, this was in 2022, just FYI for those people coming in. So Terra Luna collapsed in May of 22. And this sort of marked the beginning of a bunch of problems, because you had Three Arrows Capital, you had Celsius Network, which I had some money in Celsius. Fortunately, I was able to get the vast majority of it back after they went to court for 2 years. Voyager, and then FTX collapsed in November. So this all happened in the same year. So from May to November of 2022, everything was going backwards on the back of bad news after bad news after bad news after bad news. And so, I mean, I can understand the fact that people were thinking, oh, it's over, the crypto bubble has burst and everything's going to end. But by 2022, I mean, you have to realize Bitcoin was already 13 years old at this point, had never failed. Ethereum, a good 10 years old at this point. Solana had started, I think, in the late teens. So Solana was young. So, I can understand, thinking Solana might go to 0. But the truth is, like, the NFT volume on Solana was massive. The NFT volume and code volume on Ethereum was massive. Bitcoin was already becoming a store of value. The IRS had already ruled it as property. Like, all of these things were already in place. Like, the foundation had already begun. And so coming out of all this, Solana had basically not only garnered a lot of attention in the NFT world, but then it garnered attention for meme coins and coding and business use cases. And it's done nothing but multiply all of those since. So since the fall of 2022, here we are, 23, 24, now we're coming into the fall of 2025. So 3 years on, Solana's gone from $8 to $200+. So I mean, when you look at the adoption, when you look at the use case, when you look at the story, that's the thing that's important, not so much the acute event in the moment. Sure, the acute event in the moment might have an impact on local price, might have an impact on how people view it, but you have to look past that acute moment and the pain, because all that emotionalism will subside. And then the question is, what are you left with? And so once the emotion goes away, are we still left with Bitcoin being a store of value? Yeah. Are we still left with, good artwork on Solana and on ETH? Yeah. Are we still left with code on ETH? Yeah. Is Solana Tech expanding and growing? Yeah. So, I mean, when all the emotionalism's over and the use cases are revealed, that's when the price starts to come back and people start to settle in. So yeah, I mean, of course you're going to be fearful, or if you're smart, you should be fearful. But it's just like the saying goes, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. Even to your own detriment is kind of like the end of that quote. And so you have to take some risks. So if you thought Solana was risky at 8, okay, makes sense, but it's still not a reason not to throw a couple $100 at it.
Absolutely, and when you mentioned that time, I mean, what was pretty exciting is when you looked at Magic Eden back then, you saw these insane numbers of floor prices. I think the EGOTs was somewhere around like 600 Sol in floor price, and Yeah, man, it's like we'll probably never see these numbers again. Obviously, we'll never see Solana back at $8. But yeah, it's like it's crazy to think about. That we all had that opportunity. Some obviously captured it, some kind of faded it. Um, but yeah, man, it's like it never gets boring with crypto, obviously. And now we have a time where everyone on the timeline tells us that big Bitcoin whales are dumping Bitcoin, blah 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 blah. I mean, Bitcoin went from 16 to 125 or 24. Obviously, these guys are taking profits as well at some point, right? So yeah, like whenever you look at the charts, whenever you see cryptocurrencies dumping, you should definitely see it as another opportunity for you to get in. And what did you say? Like, what's the target, the main goal to accumulate? Was it like 1 Bitcoin, 10 ETH, and 100 Sol or something?
Yeah, I mean, if you can, at this point in time, if you can accumulate a Bitcoin, 10 ETH, and 100 Solana, and then just play, man, have fun with the rest of it. I mean, you have a base that you can work with. And from that base, like if you believe the story, if you believe the Bitcoin story that Michael Saylor tells, or the Bitcoin story that Jack Mallers tells, or the Bitcoin story that 50% of every big bank analyst is now telling you, they're telling you that Bitcoin's going to 7 figures, and depending on which analyst you believe, Bitcoin could go to low 7 figures or 8 figures even. So, at the end of the day, if you're buying that story, most people are going to be pretty set up if they've got $1 million in Bitcoin. Like that's just one Bitcoin. Like get one Bitcoin, sit on it. Get your 10 ETH. Traditionally, ETH has been a fraction of Bitcoin. Again, this is untested because they switched from proof of work to proof of stake. But for the longest time, Ethereum was basically operating at 1/10 of Bitcoin. Today, it hasn't been able to make new highs, I think largely because of the proof of stake shift, which was a huge mistake, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, that's what they did. So we haven't seen ETH rally past 5,000. And I was expecting it to be at 10,000 by this point. But again, token supply is everything. And then, of course, Solana, which has always been, proof of stake, really, they call it they call it proof of history, but it's really just proof of stake. So like at the end of the day, you get 100 Solana, Solana's at $200 a token right now. So that's 20 grand. 10 ETH is going to run you about 48,000. And then of course, Bitcoin is going to run you about 110,000. So what is that? It's like $175,000 that can easily quintuple in the next 5 years. I mean, if you do that, you're going to outpace every retirement fund, every hedge fund, every other investment that you can possibly, get involved in, assuming the story doesn't change. Again, everything is story dependent. And right now the story is only getting stronger.
Yeah, man, I'm missing Ripple on your list. Where's Ripple, man? How much Ripple do I need to get out of the trenches?
Yeah, no Ripple. Avoid Ripple like the plague. If you're smart, it's not going to do anything. The time to buy Ripple was when it first came out, and it was like 6 cents a token. That's when I bought it. I think it was like 6 or 7 cents, and I had like 15 or 20,000 of Ripple at one point. And it had this one day where it bounced all the way up to like $3, and I totally missed it. I wasn't paying attention, so I missed my sell at $3. But I ended up selling it at like 60 cents or something like that. So I did all right with Ripple, but it's not going to do anything from here. There's just too many tokens.
Oh, so you mean like you missed it like in the first cycle when it ran up?
Yeah, I missed the first big run up on Ripple. It went to like $3.15, I believe, and I think I had. Like
I think if you look at the chart, it was there for like 5 minutes or something, right?
Yeah, it was quick. I don't know if it was 5 minutes, but it was quick for sure. You would have had to pay attention to the chart that day for sure.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Solana is the much better play. I feel like Binance BNB is doing pretty good, pretty solid. It has like a pretty good run as well. I'm not sure why, because I never hear anyone speaking about BNB, and I'm not sure, maybe Binance has something to do with it, but I'm not sure if that token has any sort of utility.
Yeah. I don't know that much about the token's utility. They have obviously an NFT platform, but outside of that, I don't know that much about the token. I haven't really followed it, but mainly just because they started as an exchange. I see them as an exchange, and I'm never going to really use Binance Smart Chain for anything. To be quite honest, it's just there's no need for me to use it, so I'm not even going to take a look at it, and I'm not going to speculate on the token. So when I'm looking at chains or tokens, I'm looking at the chain doing something unique or something different, or growing at some insane rate. Binance had its growth spurt, and I think it's pretty much kind of equalized since then, and I don't really see the chain being used for anything else other than the typical stuff that you can find on every other chain. So why would I buy the token, which is, if you think about it, it's kind of like buying stock in an organization. What's the point? There's other chains or organizations doing the same thing. What makes this one special, really? So at this point, it just kind of comes down to religion, like whatever religion you believe. Oh, Binance Smart Chain, or Binance is going to be this and that and the other thing. Okay, cool. If that's your religion, go put your money where your mouth is. But there's really nothing special about it, to my knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the 24-hour volume, Binance is definitely it has like 20% of what Solana does in 24 hours. Obviously, a lot more going on Sol. But yeah, let's jump a little bit into the world of NFTs. And we've already discussed our schedule for the next couple of weeks at least on Spaces last time on Friday. And just to summarize, so we will have an artist incubator drop on the 21st, Katari. She created a very beautiful piece. I think you guys are definitely going to love it. And then we are obviously creating the next batch mint. It's been a while since we did a GoodFellow's batch. This is definitely very special. When was the last time? I think it was October 24, or was it December? I'm not even sure. Do you remember? Batch number 7, right?
Yeah, it's hard to know. There's been so much that's happened, so much conversion to core, so many mints and remints and artist incubators. I can't keep them all straight, man. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not even sure. Was the Solana bosses that was not the last batch, right? I think we have. Oh man, we should know that.
Been. I don't know,
but it's been whatever. We can definitely look that up. But yeah, we will have another Goodfellas batch, and as you guys just noticed, it's been a while since we had the last one. The next one is going to be animated, which is a pretty cool thing because right now we have 2 animated pieces already. We have Hannah's piece, and we have Princess Leia piece that recently dropped. And I love. Do you feel like we could have done that animated batch 1 year ago, or do you feel like the tech evolved recently, that it's been that it's gotten a lot better now?
It's definitely easier now, for sure. I mean, with the simple animation you want to do for an NFT, unless you're doing some full length video, which would be a completely different animal. If you're doing some simple, interesting animation for NFTs, tools like Grok make it pretty easy. Of course, there's 1,000 different animation tools in the AI world right now. Excuse me, but the way it is right now, you can definitely get a lot more work done in a shorter period of time, with less sort of back and forth with the machine. Even if you're just using like a standard animation program and having to, rig a piece and move the piece across the screen versus, instructing an AI on what you want to do, all of those things are easier now. Whether it was traditional or whether it's AI, animation's always involved a machine of some sort. Ever since we went from sequential pictures to the digital world. So for the last 30, 40 years, really, I guess really since like early film, like Star Wars, back in the 70s, pioneered a lot of this stuff. They actually created a lot of the technologies that evolved into tools that we use today. Things like Photoshop, that all came out of Industrial Light and Magic way back in the day. And it just evolved from them not having the tools that they needed to create the effects visually that they wanted to create, which was one of the reasons that film was so successful in 77 or 78 whenever it was first released. No one had ever seen that type of thing before. It just looked so good. People were amazed. And today it's kind of the same thing. We have this AI that can do these really complex animations in short order by recognizing a character on the screen and moving the character in a way that you instruct it to move the character without actually having to sit down and rig it and code it and all this other kind of stuff. So it's kind of like the next leap forward. And yeah, I mean, way easier today than it would have been even just a few years ago because of the advent of AI and the speed at which it has evolved.
Absolutely. I remember the first tries I had with AI animating pieces were horrible, obviously, but not, as you said, Grok right now makes it pretty easy. We've had that conversation already, like discussing what kind of animations we want for the animated badge. Obviously, keeping it simple makes sense because if you just look at an NFT, and that's actually something whoever listens to this can definitely drop his opinion on Discord. So if you have a simple animation, at least like simple to some degree, you can watch it in a loop. Like if you look at smoke moving or fog or whatever, you can watch it in a loop and it looks good. If you choose to make a more complex animation, like I don't know, for 10 seconds or whatever, it probably won't be that good as an NFT, in my opinion. Maybe like for a 1-of-1 or whatever, but yeah, I think we both agree on having pretty simple animations, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's better visually when you have a character that is NFT based to have. I mean, like if you want something that's visually appealing, it's better to have it simple and short as opposed to lengthy and complex. Like when you start getting into lengthy and complex, it's perfectly fine to create NFTs around that, but it doesn't really fit inside a gallery per se. It's more of a sit down and enjoy this almost as if it's a TV show or a movie kind of a thing. And that's a different sort of experience than flipping through your NFTs and enjoying the visual, one by one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would love to see. I'm not sure. Like, we're not able to put X profile pictures that are animated, right?
I don't know. I've never even tried.
Because I think I've never seen that, so I just pretend it's not possible. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it. In my imagination right now, it would be cool. But if I just imagine going through the timeline and seeing all these movements, every NFT, every PFP is like animated, that might look a little confusing. So I'm not sure if I like it or not. But yeah, I don't know. Like that could be an option. Like maybe if you check a profile of someone, and the piece is animated, that would be actually pretty cool. The PFP, and for the timeline, it's still not moving.
Yeah,
I'll reach out to Elon and get that done.
All right, I appreciate you doing that. Yeah, tell him to chop, man, get it done. Snap your fingers and point. Chop, Elon, get it done, buddy.
Yeah, man. All right. So what else do we got? We got the animated badge coming up. We got a piece from the Baddies NFT, which is a project that has not yet launched on Solana yet. They will launch on Solana. They just opened their Discord. So if you guys enjoy their art, cartoonish art, you can definitely join their Discord and get their early supporter role. It's funny because these guys are familiar with the NFT space, but being a founder is definitely a little different to, obviously just being collector, because you have to make so many decisions. And that conversation with them reminded me of how we started back then. Back then we had so many ideas. We didn't really know from the very beginning what way to go, what's like the best way. We both had the same values, obviously. That's why we are here today, because we said from the very beginning, no free shit, no trying to attract people by doing stupid giveaways. And it's like I said, it's interesting to get different perspectives on that. And I had that conversation with the Baddies, who did a couple of giveaways in the very beginning. They attracted people who now expect to get some free shit. And
imagine that.
But on the other hand, those guys are at least very supportive when it comes to engagement. Obviously, when they think they get something for free, they want it to become valuable in the end, right? So they do support them on X. They do share posts, create posts, and do all that kind of stuff. So that's actually a pretty full discussion for an X space, like to get different creators on the space and yeah, talk about how they started and what their initial ideas were when they started their projects, because obviously we are in a circle of people who value their art and who are not believers in all that free giveaway shitty stuff. But many people out there starting from the very beginning are having the same questions. And yeah, don't you think that would be interesting to gather some of the founders and yeah, discuss all that?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I mean, there's right ways and wrong ways to do everything. We do bonus mints, and some people do giveaways. But at the end of the day, where nothing is invested, nothing will be returned, and this is the problem with the freebie mentality. And unfortunately, too much of the NFT world was predicated on this, and so you see people come into the space and leave the space broke, and not just broke like financially, but broke mentally, because they feel like they gave so much of themselves and they never got anything in return. And now there's resentment. And anytime you have that type of resentment, you're never going to have a positive outcome. So you have to create fair exchange. And some people, the thing that's frustrating about the NFT world to me, as just an objective observer, is just the sheer level of toxic positivity that comes into the space, because you have people on one end squawking about, oh, we want, floor prices to rise, or we want, quality this, and we want, this and that and the other thing. And then on the flip side of that, it's like, okay, well, what does it take to create what you want? What does it take to create, rising floor prices, or to create exclusivity? Like, what does it take to create that? Well, you're not going to create that through free shit, because you bring in all the wrong people who aren't concerned with exclusivity or making sure that your project's sustainable and all the rest of it. So if you start with that, it's really really difficult to backpedal. It's really difficult to backpedal. And you see this in human nature in all realms. If you've ever been into a classroom where there was a teacher who was really, really just sort of lenient, didn't really pay attention to her class, kind of let the class, run the show. And you go in there, and then you have another teacher that comes in that's more strict and wants people to pay attention and has rules and regulations. All of a sudden, there's all this hatred and animosity toward the new teacher. And the truth is, it's not the teacher's fault. Like, the previous teacher trained these kids to have an expectation that no longer exists. And now they're mad at the new teacher who actually wants to invest in them and create better outcomes for them. And they're too stupid to know it. Like, kids are too dumb to know this, right? And so it's the same thing here. Like, you train people and you teach people how to treat you. And too many NFT projects have taught the market to treat them like they're fucking garbage. That there's no value here, that my work is not worth paying for, and all the rest of it. And anytime that's in play, man, Jesus Christ, you're going to have a really, really rough time. So it's much better to focus on learning how to sell, learning how to position yourself, have a spine. Don't worry about min outs. That doesn't really matter. Worry about attracting good people, and then the rest of it will be a lot easier, and it'll fall in place more along the lines of what you want to create.
Absolutely. And like, as a final question on that topic, what I'd like to know is, if you could go back in time and with all the knowledge you have right now, would you do anything different with the GoodFellas? Because I wondered, and I think the only thing I feel like we shouldn't have done, probably, I think back then we felt like we were obligated to do that, but we invited all the old Art of Mob people into the project, and this is actually something that annoyed us like for months after the because obviously we had so many people coming in and were like, here we go, I got my free Art of Mob piece, what do I get here now? Like they expected to get some free shit, they expected to get something in exchange because they held an old project that we were not affiliated with. Anything you would have done different?
It's hard to say, it's really, really hard to say. I mean, at the end of the day, you are in a constant battle between wanting to please people and then wanting to produce something that is of great integrity and has, a solid vision. So, we had a third partner, Binksy, who runs Friends Factory right now. And, he was of the opinion that we should do everything traditionally in the market, right? Like it should look, when we had conversations about charging people to come in, we had conversations about utility, we had conversations about, giveaways, and we were on one side of the fence with, yeah, we're not doing any of that nonsense. And he was like, well, you have to do it this way because that's the way you do it in NFT world. And I'm like, well, if the way NFT world worked, like there wouldn't be a 99% failure rate at this point, right? So let's just stop pretending that we have to follow that model. The model's broken, so following it would be stupid. So he, ran off and elaborated and created Friends Factory. Of course, the same artist that did the female forum did the little TV head guys that he has in his collection, which are really, really cool. But if you look at what they did all the free shit. They didn't sell out. They had to make a bunch of excuses as to why they couldn't sell out. They did a bunch of different mints to get sold out. They finally just eliminated some of their supply and called it sold out. And today they have the usual nonsense, the Discord, the trait swapper. They've, done some other, like community thing where you can like look for people for jobs or whatever. All of this stuff, all of which has been done before, and their floor price is 0.08. Okay, so after all of the nonsense and all of the crazy, they're at 0.08. All right. So, and then if you look at the total volume, it's not enough to have paid people for the last 18 months, whether it's artists or admins or owners, or to produce the code that they produced for all of these different things. At a, what is their, let's see, what is their, I don't know what their royalty is. Oh, 6.6. So 6%. So 6 times 7, 42. So assuming that all of this volume is real, they would have taken in about 43, 44 SOL in 18 months. And okay, so if you multiply that out, that's not much money to spread across 5 or 6 people who are doing a lot of work, like a fuck ton of work, and especially when it comes to coding. So, there's just no way to survive that unless you're working a job outside of it and have no real plans of building anything in the space. And this is, and I'm not picking on Banksy because he's probably a good dude and wants to do good things for his people and all that kind of thing. I'm not picking on him. I'm just pointing this out as one example that I know fairly well from what happened behind the scenes to what is now publicly displayable. So at the end of the day, you got what you got, and we already knew the score going in. So if we already knew the score going in, why would we do it in a manner that we know is going to initiate and create an opportunity to fail to the tune of 99% or 98%, whatever the number happens to be today? It just doesn't make any sense. But that's the way people in the NFT world think. And these people garner a lot of loyalty from the freebie seekers in some sense because they'll reward them for, hey, share my tweet or, like this thing and, you'll earn this little reward in Discord. That's fine. I mean, it's all gamification. It's all good stuff. But in the wrong context, it doesn't help you. And that's what happens with all of these NFT projects, unfortunately.
Yep, couldn't agree more. It's funny because I think some people do know that we started back then as a group of 3. But even before that, we were actually a group of 5 or 6 people in the Discord when we spoke about how to start that new project. It didn't have a name back then, and most of the guys were like basically telling us to just to like that a D-Rock means just airdropping, reminting and airdropping the pieces to their former holders.
That's right.
And the truth is, probably most of them were hoping for some volume and then just cash grab something and leave. But when it came to commitment and we told people like, hey, we want to build something, we actually want to form a good project here, you suddenly saw everyone having no time anymore. Everyone was like, oh, I'm not sure, like I don't really have the time right now, and blah blah blah. They all dropped, and the 3 of us stayed. And yeah, after some time we realized that Ben and Jason and me, we were not on the same page. Ben obviously had his own project already, in building up. He paused it for the Goodfellas, and we at some point we mutually parted ways, and this is actually the story behind the Goodfellas. And now, 2 years later, is it 2 years? Even more than 2 years. Crazy, man.
Yeah, it's been a while.
We are here, and we couldn't be more thankful for the journey. I think I can speak for the both of us. Obviously, if I look at the galleries, if I look at the collections we have, they're so awesome. If I look at the connections we've made, obviously, with the artists, with the community. I'm happy, man. I'm happy that we decided to take that journey back then. Obviously, a lot of up and downs. A pretty big down back in January, but never stopping, right?
That's right, man. If you're committed, you're committed. You commit to all of it, the good and the bad and the rest of it. So that's just what it's about. And between now and then, looking back over all that time, I'm not sure I would change much. Definitely wouldn't worry about the freebie seekers. The challenge with the Art of Mob to Goodfellas conversion was the fact that, Art of Mob at one point did have a good reputation, and they did have people who were spending money on the NFTs. So on some level, the Art of Mob pieces that were being acquired and that were being bought were being paid for. So there was some indication that the people there were concerned with, quality. But then, of course, the level of conversation in Discord was basically, like third grade crayon level nonsense that you always see in all these stupid projects. The win mint, win Lambo nonsense, like all that kind of crap that you see from people who are just really immature looking for, freebie nonsense. Or, what are some of the other things, like the games that they would play, where they would just like get together and like gamble on nonsense or do raffles over nonsense. Like this is the type of stuff where if you're in a Discord that's doing that sort of stuff, what they're telling you is we have nothing to offer you. We have literally zero value. Okay. And they're telling you that because at the end of the day, the only way they can generate any form of interest is by bribing you or by, turning you into a trained monkey where you're, pushing a button to get a peanut. Like at the end of the day, that's all that they're telling you. So if there's no depth there, it's all surface level, 3-inch deep water as opposed to 3-mile deep water, you're in the wrong place, and that project's not going anywhere. So, and it's one thing to build all of those things on top of a foundation of values, which is the way that you should be doing it. But what happens in the NFT world is you build all that stuff on no foundation. That's the problem. And when there's no foundation, that's when you create these problems around the shallow, toxic positive, win Lambo, win mint nonsense. And you get these insane outputs of labor. Like I look at the pieces for Friends Factory, for example. The pieces are beautiful. Like, Betunios did a great job, and the art is amazing. I love the art. Just like the female art he did for us is absolutely amazing. But the truth is he's never going to be properly compensated for it, because at the end of the day, the project cannot grow past a 3-inch deep stream of water. It needs to be 3 miles deep, and you can't build that on nothing. You have to have investment. There's a reason that venture capital has, A rounds and B rounds. Like here's the idea, guys. It's really risky, and we're asking you to put a lot of money into it up front. And some guy goes, yeah, I'll give you $10 million for your A round investment, right? And then that round closes and they come back, and now the project's a little more fleshed out. There's more ideas flowing, there's more execution flowing, and they come back for another round. And the guy says, okay, well, now that you're established, I'll give you some money. Okay, well, now that guy that invests, his return's going to be much less than the guy who came in with all the risk. And you can't mitigate that. It's like you have to have the investment and you have to have the risk meet in a place where execution can happen to the point where there can be returns on the initial investment. And everyone who comes in after the fact gets less and less and less and less and less of the return, all the way until there's this stable line, right? That's where we're approaching with with crypto, like eventually there'll be a stability line where most of the risk is gone out of the market. Therefore, most of the reward will be gone out of the market. So asking people to not invest in a project that you're creating with all of your energy, effort, and expertise really creates a situation where your risk of failure goes even higher, because now you have no recourse if something bad happens. You have no recourse if you need to hire a developer. You have no recourse if you need to fix something. You're just screwed. If you can't afford to do it or know how to do it, you can forget about it. It's not going to happen for you. So this is the whole thing. Like, great things require great investment, and it starts obviously with founders who understand that, but then drawing in the right people and offering those bits of stock or those bits of investment to the right people who are buying into the project or into the stock or into the company is critical. Otherwise, you just end up with a really, really bad situation.
Yeah, man, that's the exact reason why we keep reminding people, especially the ones in our community right now, how early they are. And that, one day there will be different times, and, with increasing adoption and more people get into NFTs, and, suddenly a boss can be worth much more than it is right now. So, we'll see about all that. But on the other hand, one thing I wanted to point out is obviously there can be projects who did giveaways and still succeed. It's not that I when I speak to baddies, I'm not like, dude, guys, you did a giveaway, you're doomed now. No reason to continue now. So I was very happy that they questioned their method. So that's definitely a good sign. And as Jason just explained, it's important to understand all these things, and moving forward, we'll definitely keep these values. And I think those were some beautiful final words you found for today's podcast, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like the methods of all this stuff is all context dependent. So within the right context, anything can work. And so whether you started with pay it or you started with free or you built that stuff in, it's all context dependent, and you can always engineer a new outcome. So nothing is set in stone. It's just a matter of understanding where you are in whatever cycle you choose.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right, fellas. So, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you listening today again. And as we said, we will have Kateri's drop on September 21st. We will have the animated badge later in October, and we will have a little piece for Veterans Day. Of course, we spoke about that on the last spaces as well. And let's see, what else? I think there's nothing I forgot. Of course, we will be live on Spaces on Friday again. Look forward to see you guys around. And final words now coming from my partner, Jason. Anything you have to add?
No, man. Have a great week, guys, and it's good to be back on the podcast. We'll see you in the next one and on Friday Spaces.